I know is so explosive and so incredibly mind-boggling when it's finally presented correctly, so that you begin to see the progression of the use of this symbol, how it is used by the different cults, different religions of the world, how it is used by the different governments, all governments of the world.
Curriculum wrong, that they are now engaging the final plan.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to my show. My name is madisonmoonstar. Today is May 28, 2014. Joining me today is Jim Lee, independent researcher and activist from climateviewer.com, also the Resonation. Do you want to discuss anything before I call, or do you want me to just go right into it?
You know, it's a conversation. Let's have a conversation. The main things I want to hit is I want to talk about the Aviation Environmental Design Toolkit, the software they use to route all the flights. I would like to mention some of the emissions conditions for like the status 450, the anti-static agents, the agents they put in the fuel. And I would really like to talk about biofuels.
All right, sweet. All right, so let me give him a call. Hold on one second.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Halthori. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, I have Jim Lee on the phone with me. He knows a lot more about carbon black and other things that I had questions about. If you could just speak with him, it'd be good, and I'm right here.
Right. And
how are you doing?
This person's name is, hi, how are you? Your name is? Jim?
My name is Jim Lee. I'm from Sumter, South Carolina, and my website is climateviewer.com.
Climate
and
Viewer.
.com.
Go ahead. Okay, got it.
Now, if you want to follow along, you can click on the Geoengineering at the top.
Okay, let me do that. Hold on a minute. Let me open up a website here, web page.
This page is pretty much covering weather modification laws in the United States and other atmospheric experimentation. And I briefly touch on the word chemtrail, and it's a word that I use simply because, you know, people who are interested in this, they use that word. We won't get into that finer point, but we're talking about persistent contrails. If you scroll to the bottom, near the bottom of the page, there's a bunch of articles in a row, and near the bottom it should say chemtrail timeline. I would love to have a conversation with you at a later date after you've had time to review this. Please bookmark this timeline, and I would really like to get your responses on many things. What I want to talk about is the Aviation Environmental Design Toolkit. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, AEDT, right.
Yes, sir. Now, this routes the flights in America. It designs fuel burns, mixtures, and all that stuff. I have heard from the camps against contrails that want to remove contrails through the use of biofuels, through the use of the 50-50 drop-in fuels. You're familiar with this?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
These guys want to get rid of contrails. Now, on the other side, you got a group called the Arctic Methane Emergency Group. Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. It's AMEG something, but anyway, it's AMEG. And these guys are saying that they want to relax the fuel restrictions on bunker fuel to produce solar radiation management from ship tracks. And they also go on to say, establish a positive and negative net forcing for contrails so that they could be specifically placed in locations to do localized cooling. Now, there's a lot of controversial stuff, and I know that, you know, scientists are always going to disagree. But for me, as an out...
Sorry? Hello?
Hello? Jim? No, he's still here. I can see him on the switchboard, but he's gone. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so hopefully, well, while he was right about to make his point, I don't understand what happened. Anyways, can I ask you the one question that I have ready for you? It's just about trade secret ingredients that are added to fuels, for fuel additives, how they're trade secrets ingredients. So how are we able to know what they are? How are we able to know how they affect us and our health? And also, who regulates the trade secret ingredients?
Okay, so when you say trade secrets, I think each and every fuel manufacturer has their own recipe, right? But they have to follow certain. They can't put anything in there.
Okay, he's back. Here he is.
Okay.
Okay, and I want you to answer my question. You finished talking to him. Sorry, Jim. I don't know what happened.
No, I'm on Wi-Fi and the thing dropped. Sorry about that. Where was I? Where were you?
So you were.
I'll start over.
You were saying that there were certain. Okay.
Yeah. I've got a laundry list of organizations that are associated with, like, the Access flights. Are you familiar with the NASA Access flights?
In fact, we are involved with it right now. Yeah. Yeah.
So they flew the flights with the drop-in fuel in it, and it burned no contrail. Correct?
So the idea is there that's a NASA experiment. It is held in California right now, and in that experiment, what they do is they burn different kinds of fuels and look at the exhaust by a following plane. By the way, another plane that follows the other plane, and we look at the exhaust and see what properties they have and what kind of particles are formed and whether they form contrails or not, those kind of things. Generally, basically studying the exhaust of planes at cruise altitudes in a real situation. Okay, this is an experiment, and that's being done in California right now. And
I know it started in 2012, correct?
It may have been planned then, I guess. There was one Access 1, and now it is Access 2. So you may be right. I think there may have been one other. I know there was another experiment earlier.
Yeah, it was January 2012.
Yeah.
Where are the results of those studies published?
So this is ongoing right now, and we're getting data as we speak, and we're going to look at the data. We're going to model them and see how whether we understand the properties of the exhaust. And this is to basically.
So can I stop you real quick, because I understand.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to get to the point. So we're on the same page.
Of course,
you know what I'm talking about. My point is this: how come when you got the public calling for all these agencies saying, chemtrail this, chemtrail that, what the heck? Why is because I just listened to all of Madison's tapes, why is the standard response from all the agencies nothing to see here when billions of dollars are being spent at the national labs to figure out how contrails turn into contrail cirrus? They still don't know today. I read June 2013. They don't know. Running it at the national labs. This has been ongoing for years. You guys started doing flights last year.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to your punchline. So why is it that we are not telling people?
Okay.
What do you
let me simplify it. When the public calls and says, what's up with the chemtrails in the sky, why is the response always there's nothing to see and not we're trying to figure that out?
Oh, that's a good question. I think perhaps I'm guessing now. Perhaps because of the way you formed the question, when you say chemtrail, all right.
I know.
The moment you say that, you turn people off, scientists off, because there is no such thing.
Yeah, but we didn't create. Yes, there is. Well, we didn't create the term. The Air Force did. The Department of Defense did.
But let's be real. We're talking about slang, and you guys are. I'm not saying you guys. I'm saying that the standard response seems to be, oh, they said slang. Don't be real with them. Now, you're supposed to be, the sign of true intelligence is to be able to talk to anybody on their level. So if somebody comes to you and says chemtrail, you should be able to explain to them, A, these are contrails, They have become persistent contrails in the recent years because of all of the additives. Do you agree?
You could probably use a different nomenclature, and
I agree.
Still one could address that. Yeah, that is true. I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, who regulates the additives? Who regulates the trade secret additives that are put in that aren't tested?
Ultimately the authority belongs to EPA. You can't just burn anything you want. And the thing is, these are all regulated, and you can't just as you know, long time ago we were discussing about the content of lead and other things, and they're all regulated.
Yeah.
You can't just put
and they removed all the lead from the gas, but the problem I see here is, you're saying that it's all tested. I have gone through multiple MSDS sheets that says no environmental data collected. Do not dump in water. Yet it's creating water vapor in the sky. It is being dumped into water. One particular one, status 450, dinonaphthyl sulfonic acid. It's a barium salt. Yeah, it's got all the details on it, but it's still a barium salt. Then, and it's an anti-static agent. But then you go over to the Air Force, and the U.S. Air Force made an additive called Spec Aid 8Q462. This thing has 3 chemicals in it, 2 of which, when I went to their MSDS sheets, said, ingredient 1, ingredient 2 is trade secret, ingredient 3 is trade secret, ingredient 4. So you cannot tell me the EPA got to test that because they weren't even divulged the information on it. And it was made by General Electric Water, which was GE Betts at the time in 1994. So you got the Air Force Research Lab putting together a chemical cocktail to put in all their JP8 and nobody testing any of this stuff, meanwhile saying this is all safe. I don't accept that, I don't accept that argument. I don't see an MSDS sheet that tells me it's safe.
Well, I kind of see your point, but I think that you are making a leap here in conclusion that the JP8, that they use additives to that they are harmful, because those things they have to go through rigorous testing and things like that.
I believe you, but I'm actually not making a leap, sir. I'm asking the question. I'm not even making the assumption that they are dangerous. My only assumption is that there's a whole lot of pollution that people are calling. If you say the word chemtrail, they're going to say this pollution is fine when they know that the radiative forcing of it is terrible, that it is trapping heat at night. It is a leading concern for climate change. They're passing carbon taxes everywhere and not even talking about the aviation industry, which is clouding the entire sky and trapping heat and heating the planet for 60 years.
So I understand what you're saying. One of the reasons why we do have alt fuels in the first place is to minimize the global warming, right? I mean, that's why we are testing different. So when you add additives to the fuel, you want to minimize, for example, harmful chemicals that like lead and, for instance, all those things that affect the health. And in addition, in the case we want to minimize the formation, let's say of sulfur. Like you don't have sulfur at all, and you have a zero sulfur fuel, and then that means that you don't form particles, and that would then form contrails and so on and so forth. So we're looking at advantages, not disadvantages. That's the idea of using alt fuels.
I know that.
And yeah. So the question is, you're asking whether are you worried that even in the testing phase it might affect people, or are you saying that eventually the testing and all this is put into the practice somewhere, it'll find its way into the regular fuel used by thousands of flights, and hopefully then it'll be good for the human beings. That's the idea.
If y'all are testing all these emissions and contrails and this and that, I know you personally have worked on these projects with Brookhaven or NASA?
Right, and here as well.
Right, and there as well, right. So you're the man, and you know what's going on. But I'm saying with seeing the pollution, like Jim said, it's constant. So we can't ignore the pollution that overcasts the sky on a daily basis. So it has to be something.
I think the problem may be that when you look at contrails, you may think that it is polluting and bad.
Well, I'm talking about overcast. I'm not just talking about. I'm talking about the clear blue sky, chemtrails. I don't call them contrails because I think there's something different, but we're not going to get into the conspiracy side because Jim's on, and I respect him and his work. But I'm saying that it completely pollutes the sky and literally blocks the sun out on a daily basis. Sometimes we have overcast for weeks at a time.
Okay.
That is not natural or normal.
Okay, so I agree that the formation of contrails is man-made. I mean, without the aeroplanes, there would be no contrails. And so now you're asking the question, hey, you are flying all these planes and you form these contrails and you're affecting climate. And that is a true statement. You do affect climate. It's not.
Don't you think it could be because of the fuel additives, the unregulated, untested? Don't you think it could be because of all the added fuel additives that they keep adding on and on?
No, as I mentioned to you, contrails form because of they're just made of ice particles. When you fly,
no. Contrails are more than ice.
Hear me out. So when you fly these planes at high altitude, there were no planes flying at high altitudes 100 years ago, right?
Right.
So this is all because of the flights, right? So the flights, when they fly in troposphere, upper troposphere, lower stratosphere, they form contrails. That's unusual. That's man-made. And so these contrails trap heat. They do block the infrared radiation from going into space, and so they do have an effect of increasing the temperature slightly, ever so slightly, and so the point being that want to minimize this effect. And how do you form contrails in the first place? You form contrails because there are particles in the...
I don't think these are contrails that I'm calling about, though. I really honestly do not believe that it's contrails that I'm concerned about. It's chemical emissions coming out of either, like I said, the fuel additives or being purposely sprayed, which is what I believe. And you know that I've always believed that.
Right.
I would like to add something to that before you respond.
Sure.
Now, I've been studying the ISSR phenomena for quite a while, the ice supersaturated region. Ice supersaturated regions.
Yes.
Are you familiar with
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I know what you're
saying. To bring it back to the beginning of the call, we were talking about the AEDT. Now, what I understand is this Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative is...
that's the one we were managing.
Yeah, ACRI is behind the AEDT, and they talk about routing the flights to avoid ISSRs in conjunction with low sulfur content fuels so that the aviation industry can get out from this climate change expense that they would have otherwise. Is that correct?
I think your statement generally is true. I may quibble with the language that you're using, but that's okay.
Okay, well,
I mean,
that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I may be misphrasing it. I'm just trying to generalize because I want to keep it simple for the people listening. Okay.
Sure.
I understand.
Sure.
I just you and I both know what we're talking about here. So here's the problem, and I don't know where I got cut off before, but I'll say it again. I debate Ken Caldera and Stephen Salter and John Latham and all of the geoengineers on Ken Caldera's forum. I have for 2 years. And these guys seem to know zero, or they claim to know zero about contrails. And that blows my mind because contrails clearly are doing a form of geoengineering SRM now. Unintentionally, I don't agree that it's intentional. That's intent is a trail debate.
I think that's a very good way of putting it, actually. You put it in a very good way, and that's probably a correct statement because when you fly these planes, it's unintentionally you form contrails, and they do affect climate, and ever so slightly. And that's it.
So what are y'all doing to change this? What are y'all doing to get rid of these?
That's exactly what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is how do contrails form is the question. They form because you have small particles in the exhaust of the plane. And these particles form from the sulfur in the fuel and other kinds of impurities. And when this sulfur...
real quick, for those who are listening, that's also known as a cloud condensation nuclei in the weather modification industry. So there's a CCN. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ignore that. Go ahead.
So I got some statement here saying 90 seconds.
No, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. I'll let it keep going.
All right. So when you have this the sulfur additives in the fuel, which they naturally are there in the sulfur, unless you desulfurize the fuel, you form kind of small particles when you burn the fuel, and these particles are in the form of sulfur dioxide. Yeah,
correct.
Sulfur dioxide and things like that, and they mix with water and they form sulfuric acid and sulfate. And when you don't have that, you have nitrate, things like that. They form particles, and they form cloud condensation nuclei. They then use the water vapor in the exhaust of the plane to form smaller, slightly bigger particles, and then they grow using the water vapor in the atmosphere to larger sizes, and that's how they form cloud-like particles, which then look like contrails to us. They are contrails. And these contrails then are big, of the order of maybe 1 millimeter or so, 2 millimeters. And then they...
Could you real quickly give us do you know, I know this is a really tough question, but percentage-wise, what would you say the percentage of particulates coming out the back in these three categories: sulfur, carbon black soot emissions, and metal particulates? Let's just throw all the rest into that. What would you say, just generally, what would you say
it's hard to say. I don't, first thing is I don't know what the metal, the weight content is. I have to look it up. But there is sulfur, and there is black carbon in the exhaust. I don't know about metal particles. I don't know where where you got that from. But I have.
That's in the IPCC.
Unless there are some impurities.
Report.
Yeah.
It's in the IPCC report under aviation pollution, under metal and particles. It's in both reports, 97.
Okay, so there could be. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some kind of metal particles in their form from impurities in the fuel, but mainly
they quote aluminum, barium, and several others. They quote aluminum, barium, and several others in the IPCC reports.
Okay, all right. So the sulfates and black carbon are definitely present in the fuel, which has sulfur, and these are the ones that cause the formation of contrails.
So what are you going to do to fix it for us?
So that's where we are doing the experiment. That's where we are doing research.
But you're not doing it. You're not doing it fast enough, because this is perpetual.
Yeah. I'm gonna give him a break on that one. They're really, they have been trying since 1997, as far as I can tell, really hard. Even NASA's trying to do an emissionless aircraft. Am I correct on that?
Right.
They're emissionless.
Right.
So, but let's just get to the nuts and bolts of this. So, the Geoengineering SRM seeks to mimic volcanoes by putting sulfur into the atmosphere. David Keith projected that by 2020 he would need X amount of sulfur in the atmosphere in order to create a geoengineered environment. I just read a paper.
I can address that. I can address your statement. There has been no policy as yet to do any kind of geoengineering. In principle, what you say is true, which is that if you add sulfur more into the fuel and fly it in the stratosphere, you're going to form sulfate particles. And these sulfate particles generally are non-absorbing, they're reflective, and then therefore when the sunlight falls on them, they reflect sunlight back into space. And the idea is that when you do that, you cool the atmosphere. That means you act as an anti-warming agent, right? So that's called geoengineering. And there has been no policy decision on it, as far as I know. There has been no decision made by anybody. Right, so this is an idea at the moment. It's not implemented.
Well, what are they doing here then? What idea am I seeing out my window on a daily basis? If it's just an idea, they are implementing it here, and I'm reporting it to y'all on a daily basis, but no one will investigate it. I'm reporting that the skies are completely polluted here on a daily basis to all the agencies, not just the feds.
So you're saying contrails? Contrails are not polluting.
Well, whatever it is, it's not. That's what I told you before. It's not pollution. It's not contrails that I'm calling about. It's pollution.
Water is a greenhouse gas, so just the water is pollution.
Of course. So that means that whenever we burn fuel, you are going to form carbon dioxide and water vapor.
Yeah, but they didn't do that when I was younger. Go back 6 years ago, it wasn't like this.
Well, your point
is
that if you burn fuel in the atmosphere, you use aircraft, you use buses, cars, ships, you burn fuel. And when
but I don't see chemtrails coming out of the back of cars.
Well,
unless they're
really
in
the lower atmosphere. They're in the lower
Can I give you the
wash?
Because I think here's where we're stuck. Is for Madison, she's seeing her skies, and I've seen it myself. You start out in the morning, you got a couple lines. By midday, they fanned out. The whole sky's white.
Sure.
Now, you know what I'm talking. We all know what we're talking about. So
let's
get past that. The point is, she lives in a city where flights are routed. Correct? The AEDT. It puts flights in a line. It says, you guys fly this way. So if you're standing in one spot and a flight goes overhead and the air is moving, then the next flight comes overhead and the air is moving, and you get what I'm saying? It's leaving stripes in the sky. So to these people, they're seeing
of increased aircraft. Air travel.
Yeah, it's because of the computer that's routing the flights, that's making the lines in the sky.
It's generally because of the increased air travel. I mean, people want to fly, right?
It is. It's because there's more flights, and because the people that are complaining
you're blaming the pollution on the people for wanting to fly somewhere. I'm blaming the pollution on fuel additives and a secret clandestine operation from the military. That's my position, and this is my call. I can state whatever I want to state on here and everything. And you've been extremely helpful, Dr. Halthori. I want to say to Dr. Halthori, he has always helped me. He has never ever turned his back on me, and so for that, I'm very grateful to you. But I am telling you, I disagree wholeheartedly with your argument.
All right.
Mr. Doctor, please, can I say one thing? To her statement, I want to give you this because I'm sure that maybe you know, but there are many documented cases where the military has stated that they want to use carbon black emissions to create contrail cirrus. I can give you all the documents in an email later, and we can discuss them. Additionally, you can go to the internet right now and look this up, Operational Weather Control in 2030. The U.S. military states very clearly that they need to defend against satellite spy optics and lasers in space by creating contrail cirrus. So how come the military wants to create clouds, the geoengineers want to create clouds, and all of the cloud seeding industry like AQS and SciBlue and, the entire Texas Weather Modification Board, and all of these guys want to create clouds and control the weather. But
the problem with that statement is, okay, so I'm doubting the veracity of that story, the source.
It's a fact, but I can give you all the references.
Of that. And the reason why I do this is the following reason. When you want to create contrails, or when you increase the contrails in the atmosphere, you're actually warming the planet more than you're not cooling the planet. So why would people want to increase why would they want to do the warming when
I'll give you that answer. The answer is this. When you have a lake, one guy wants to use the lake, the river, to frack. One guy wants to swim in the lake. Another guy wants to fish in the lake. Everybody wants the lake. Sky is the same way. You've got the military that wants to use it for their covert operations. They want to block out installations so that when a spy satellite is coming overhead, they can block it out. They clearly stated in multiple documents. I'm up to about 6. I will give you all those references. Then you have the geoengineers. They say they want to make clouds to cool the planet. And then you have the fact that we are currently creating clouds artificially, inadvertently. I'll give you that. I won't say it's deliberate, but we've been inadvertently creating clouds since 1960, and I see, attempts to get rid of contrails back in 76 with acids and all this stuff. So this is not like they haven't addressed this problem back in the 70s. They knew this was a coming problem. It's been, to me, this is just my nutshell. To me, it looks like when they noticed that this was doing this, the scientific community said, well, let's figure out what it's doing. And then once they started to figure out that it was a bad thing, they rushed towards, let's get rid of these contrails. But up till that point, it wasn't a problem. Is that a fair statement?
So the role of what you're saying is, let me summarize and then see where we stand.
Okay.
The role of contrails is a complex one, and mainly because it depends on where it is in the atmosphere, and when it happens, it warms the planet. And so what we want to do is minimize the formation of contrails. That is the goal. The goal is to minimize so that we don't warm the planet. And if that's the goal, and since that is the goal, we want to do that. And how are we going to do that? We've got a bunch of things we can do. We can fly the planes a little bit lower so that...
But you're not doing it. Anything you've attempted to do has failed.
Hear me out. And that's one of the goals, is to change the altitude of the flight. The second way to do that is to change the fuel. You reduce the sulfur in the fuel. And so you reduce the formation of contrails. And so there are several things we can do to reduce the formation of contrails. By the way, as I want to make, and this is an important point, I know that some of you are saying that, look, it's chemtrails and all that. There is no such thing. What we are trying to do is formation of contrails. We're trying to reduce the formation of contrails, all right? So these
I want you to know that I agree with you on that one alone, only because I use the word chemtrail simply because it is a chemical trail. It's a trail of chemicals, okay? I'm not going to get into the whole...
If they're ice particles, then that's what it is. It's ice particles.
They're chemical
they are.
cloud condensation nuclei covered in water, right? I mean, they're chemical cloud condensation nuclei with water
just cloud
attached to them.
condensation nuclei, CCN.
Okay, you don't want to say chemical, but they are chemicals, and they are.
Well, if you call water as a chemical, water.
I know that, but I'm just why split hairs is my point. You're a smart guy. Being lay, why split hairs? Why is everybody so hung up on this word?
Because people like Amanda will say, when you use the word chemical ship, for her it means something else. But
you shouldn't infer your beliefs of a word onto somebody else. If you don't believe the same as somebody else, please explain it. But explain it. Don't. It seems to me from all the previous calls I've heard from her that the people just immediately write you. I can understand that most of them. They don't know all the stuff we just talked about, so they aren't equipped to even get into the debate.
Sure.
But I want to. This is my in a nutshell point, and I want to make this clear to you so that you can talk to your people about it.
Okay.
There's a recent report that just came out that stated very clearly that biofuels are actually more harmful to the climate than actually burning them, because it removes corn husks from the field, which dries out the fields, which leads to erosion, which leads to the current dust bowl we're in right now. And
I think those are all valid, thoughtful statements which need to be evaluated. I think those you cannot ignore the statements you made just now. I think those are statements that need to be followed and researched and find out if, for instance, if we use a lot of biofuels, then what are the consequences on the
I can tell you what they are. So
land use and land change.
I've been studying this for 2 years now, and this is where I see the final problem, the deal breaker for me. And I've kind of just, stayed in the background of this, and I just inform people with a little bit of nuggets every now and then. But I'm making a documentary about this, and I have questions still, too. I don't want to try to address them now, but I'd love to talk with you further. It seems like for me that, with the situation we have with these biofuels, it seems to be the only current solution. And as far as the climate change, the only current solution is this geoengineering they're pushing. So it's like, all right, there's this paper out there called the double catastrophe scenario. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Have you? It's by, I think, Seth Baum. Don't quote on that, but I'll send you the link. And what it basically says is if we start geoengineering and then we stop, we get a climatory rebound effect that could be worse than the initial problem. Now, in 2001, when we had 9/11, all flights were grounded for a day, and they had the presidential flight. You can see the contrail of it. And that day, we had the largest temperature variance on record, correct?
Not, it's not, I haven't...
Yeah, we went up a whole degree. I mean, we went down, or up, we went up a whole degree.
There were I think there are a couple papers that came out of it. And
I read them all.
If you like, I can read them.
Hey, Jim.
I've already read them all.
We've run out of time. And he gave us all of his time, and that was very awesome for you to do, Dr. Halthori.
No problem.
I really appreciate this discussion, sir.
This was a very, very interesting call, and this has been, of the usual calls I get, not from you, Amanda, or your colleagues here, but this has been a very I would say, more intelligent talk I've had.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say here? No, I'm kidding.
What I'm trying to say is that
I agree.
get a lot of crank calls. And, and that people who don't really fully understand, and this has been very easy to talk in this.
I've been studying it for 2 years, and I really appreciate what you. I appreciate you having this conversation with us. My name is Jim Lee. I'm from ClimateViewer.com. I made a 3D Google Earth map to track pollution, globe, and climate change. And, I'm very devoted to this topic, and I've been, I really have a lot more questions. I would love to speak with you at a further date. And trust me, I would like to be a go-between between the scientific community and the public and really get to the bottom of a couple of these things, because I'm a nerd. I really get it. I love it. I read everything I just taught you. I've read every single paper. So I would love to really wax deep with some of this stuff, because what I see is a problem where the only solution that's been proposed is to remove sulfur from the gas. You got this community saying, look, it's geoengineering. Well, it is. The sky's full of sulfur, and it's making clouds.
Kids are impressionable. That's why here at this station, we watch the programs and commercials your child watches carefully. He may see bad guys, but not in the role of heroes. And he'll learn that crime doesn't pay. Because your child's welfare is our concern, too. That's part of our code.
Better than anything you can get without a prescription. Anything. It's the best.